Florian Bay, John, John, Florian Bay.
Another graduate trainee. Contest chair, fellow members, and most welcome guests. I will always remember my first day at work in Hartlepool Nuclear Power Station, Northeast England, in 2012. I was on the graduate training program and rotated in various departments. And this time I was about to rotate in the operations department. I was attached to C shift, a 10-man shift of operation engineers, some of them working in the control room and some of them working outside in the plant looking at various systems. The average age was mid to late 50s. They'd all risen up through the rank as apprentices, and I was a fresh-faced graduate trainee that was being dropped off at 7 a.m. on my first day. I met John during that very first day. He was a big guy with broad shoulder, a beer gut, salt and pepper hair, and very bushy eyebrows that went up his forehead. He was in his very late 50s and spoke with a thick Geordie accent. And on my first day, he invited me to sit next to him. He sat at the control at the desk of the nuclear reactor and said, "Do you see these buttons here, Florian?" "Yes." "Start having a play with them. This will tell the computer to show you different aspects of the reactor." And so did I. 10 plus 1, 10 plus 4. And quickly I started to get information about the nuclear reactor. Steam pressure, gas pressure, temperature outside at the top, which was 650 degrees, how much fuel was there, and how much electricity we were producing. Slowly, I was exposed to a huge puzzle, which I knew nothing about and quickly had to make sense of if I wanted this stint in the operations department to be successful in some ways. John quickly procured a computer for me and training material, and he sat me down and said, "Go ahead and study." For encouragement, I even got a second breakfast, fried eggs on toast. John was a bit of a cook inside the shift. And I started to study and learn more about the reactor one step at a time. But my real introduction to John and to his numerous challenges and riddles started a couple of months later, after I'd spent some time in the chemistry department to kind of get a bit more experience of working around the plant, and came back in the operation departments in January 2013 in the midst of winter on the night shift at 10 o'clock in the evening until 7 in the morning. John was there and quickly started to teach me in his own way. "Florian, how many pumps are there in the CW pump house?" "Well, in the cooling water pump house, there are 4 main pumps, John." "No, that's not the correct answer. Go out and have a look for yourself." I went once, twice, and eventually 3 times in the cooling water pump house to finally came back with the answer that I'd wrote on my little handbook. "John, there are 40 pumps in the CW pump house." "That's a good answer, lad. Now tell me what all these pumps do." "Well, some of them do this, they're the backup, they're the sump, and so on." And John started to pull more and more challenging riddles for me. One day he gave me a diagram that kind of really looked like just somebody had driven a random line around it. This was a map of the cooling water system in the turbine hall. And he challenged me, follow the pipes, look at all the valves, and I want you to come back and tell them all about them. Spent a few hours in the midst of the night. Nobody was around. I had the whole place for myself, learning about all the pipes and what they did. And when I came back in the control room, John asked me that question. "How does the main condenser pump against the vacuum? The condenser creates a vacuum, right, Florian?" "Well, this lad's always giving long-winded answer to my question. He should become a politician. You should go back to France and become a member of the Assemblée Nationale. You'll do well," is what he told me. Eventually, he started drawing a little diagram, teaching me exactly how the pump worked. I really enjoyed my time with John and the lads in C Shift. And one of the challenges they even gave me was so exciting that John even announced my name on the tannoy for all the power station to hear. Florian Bay, 2511. I called him. Go and pick up the takeaway food that's outside the security door. A mountain of food I had to bring back safely to the control room for all of us to eat. I almost fell in that mission, but that's a story for another time. John and I came from completely different worlds. Some of his colleagues had kind of told me a bit about him. I used to be a foreman, was the technician, he rose up through the ranks, and he even used to work in the steelworks that closed in the late 1970s in the town of Hartlepool. He had apparently started work at 16 in the steelworks, but knew the power station like the back of his hand. One day I was studying some materials about an incident that happened 20 years ago, and he told me, I was there when it all happened. Whenever John was at the control, I knew one thing. There will not be an accident in this nuclear power station because he knows exactly what to do. I learned a lot from John, including eventually how a 660 megawatt electrical advanced gas-cooled reactor worked. John managed to bond despite the fact that he couldn't stand foreigners. But he somehow managed to bond with me, a young Frenchman. And he even said to us all one day, this was many years before Brexit, if there's a referendum, I'll vote to leave. Typical working class Northeastern lad. We bonded over our common interest in history, and there too, he challenged me. A couple of months after I stopped working in C Shift, I learned that John retired, and I'd sent him a little card and an email, to which he replied back, it's been lovely to meet you, Florian, and work with you. I learned a lot from John, and I still remember where Valve superheated steam 8 is on the 3rd level of Hartlepool Power Station. But John really opened up my mind and taught me that mentoring and learning can arise in unexpected circumstances, that we can learn from people that may have huge differences in age or background. I'd gone to university for 4 years. He'd gone to the University of Life from when he was 16 years old and started working at the steelworks. And that's my message from this speech. Let's be open-minded to the opportunities that await us. Who is your John? Perhaps you've met him yet, perhaps you haven't. And if so, open your mind, buckle up for the challenge and the riddles, and you might learn some extraordinary things.
I would like to use this 5 minutes to talk to you, Florian. Mm-hmm. Thank you for a wonderful speech. And I have a few questions for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had to look at your LinkedIn profile, and it's wonderful. But what made me ask you a question, that what keeps you motivated in Toastmasters? You've served at so many positions. What keeps you going?
For me, it's the fact that in Toastmaster, you learn all the time and you can grow all the time. I mean, as club growth director, program quality director, district director, I've grown in so many unexpected ways. And right now, being district director during a pandemic, something I never expected would happen, it is definitely stretching me a lot, because I'm learning a lot more about self-leadership, the importance of looking after yourself, your state of mind, your mental health in the circumstances. And that's something I'm kind of hoping to put into some blog posts, some articles, and potentially some workshops in the future, because I've definitely been learning a lot in the current circumstances.
Thanks. And what I also learned, that you are also a professional trainer. So what I want to ask you is, what made you take this up as a profession? That's what I could see at the profile, that you are a presentation and leadership skill trainer. So well, what made you be one?
It started kind of organically. I got more involved in Toastmasters, starting doing some workshops, some more and more presentation. And people said, well, you're kind of good. Why don't you start to teach it? And there was a bit of reluctance until eventually I kind of needed to start making money again. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go down that route. I'm still at an early stage. I'm still building up my business. And right now it's quite challenging with COVID-19 because all in-person training doesn't happen anymore. but it kind of happened naturally. I really enjoyed it. And seeing people grow and develop is something fabulous, be it as speakers and as leaders. That is extremely rewarding.
Wonderful. I mean, how many Johns do you have in your life? It just came from your speech.
I've had many mentors through my life. John is a little bit of a character, though, and until quite recently, I was thinking about him the other day. I'm like, yeah, I want to make a speech again. I could make a speech about him. He was somebody that kind of very completely different background, really challenged me. And I've had a couple of people like that in Toastmasters that really pushed me. I mean, my current mentor, Lac Dole, has always pushed me a lot. Some people in District 91 that you could say they're mentoring me kind of informally and in unexpected ways. I've learned a lot from them. And the other thing with mentoring is that it's a two-way street. I mean, I learned a lot from John. Maybe I'd like to think he perhaps learned a couple of things from me back then. And right now, I mean, I'm mentoring somebody in Poland, for example. I'm kind of learning a lot from her. And I said to her that she's quite an inspiring person in some respect. So mentoring is always a two-way street. So it's, and it's kind of unexpected. The more open-minded we are about mentoring, the more we get out of it, in my view.
Yeah, indeed. So today we are so many people here in this room, and we also have an audience room. People are also, many might also be watching us live on Facebook, and we have been streamed on YouTube. I mean, people sometimes hesitate to be mentors, or some people are already mentors. Do you have any tip for them that what is actually mentoring, how they should look at, or why they should take up mentoring?
I think mentoring is all about sharing knowledge, and all of us have got knowledge in so many different ways. We all have different life experiences. We've studied different subjects, so that we all have something that we can bring to the table to another person. My suggestion is you don't have to be perfect to be a mentor. You don't have to be a perfectly good speaker. If I look back at John himself, actually, he wasn't a role model, a great role model in terms of some of the way he was sometimes behaving on shift and so on, like putting his feet up on the control desk, for example, which was a huge no-no, but he could get away with it because of his experience. So just go for it. Go for it. You don't need to be a great speaker to become a mentor. You can be a good speaker. But the mentoring process, by teaching somebody how to do things, by giving them tips, that will help you along the way of becoming good to great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. And I'm taking that. I might be firing too many questions at you because we have 5 minutes, but it's really interesting to know. So we're already read. I'm glad. But my last question, if I ask you, what are the 3 words that define you as a person, or that, what would those 3 words be?
3 words that would define me as a person: passionate, strategic, and structured. That's off the top of my mind right now. Elizabeth Smith, your program quality director, and Tobias Schloss, your district, know me very well. I will leave them to comment on the veracity of whether these 3 words apply to me or not.
Okay, thank you so much. I take them as truth. We are in Toastmasters. Word of mouth matters. Thank you, Florian. Thank you so much for the wonderful speech and being a target speaker.
And thank you to you and Katharina for the opportunity of being target speakers for a district final, which is something I wanted to do for quite a while now.
Thank you so much.